This is a demonstration of creating a VirtualBox virtual machine. This is not a tutorial or how-to and is not meant to be an installation guide. This video is aimed at people who have never used a virtual machine or are having difficulty grasping the concept of virtualization. My intent is to give you a general idea of what it looks like and to get you thinking about what uses you could put it to. Various guest OSs can be installed on a variety of different host OSs, depending on your choice of virtualization software. You can easily mix and match different host and guest OSs, though for this demonstration I'll install a copy of Windows 7 and a VirtualBox virtual machine on a Windows host system. I'll start by downloading the VirtualBox program. And to make it easy, I'll place the download on the desktop. I'll also download the VirtualBox extension pack. I could install directly from a Windows 7 installation DVD, but I'd previously saved the DVD as an ISO file, so I'll cut and paste that onto the desktop and install from the ISO file instead. Now on my desktop I have three files: the VirtualBox program installer, the VirtualBox extension pack, and the image of the installation DVD I'll be installing as a VM. I'll install VirtualBox. You can choose your own options here. Next, I'll install the extension pack. Which I had placed on the desktop. And then adjust a few preferences to my own liking. Under General Preferences, you'll find the default folder where VirtualBox will store any virtual machines you create. I prefer keeping the files comprising the VMs together with their virtual disks, so I'll change the default location. Virtual disks are huge files, so my goal is to make sure they are not on the C drive where they would interfere with my routine for otherwise backing up my host OS. And we're done for now. Now to create a virtual machine. In this illustration, I'll be installing the 32-bit version of Windows 7 from an ISO file. My host machine has 16 gigabytes of RAM, so I'll give the VM 4 gigabytes. Remember that when the VM is running, your host system's RAM will be split between the host OS and the VM, so you need to leave enough RAM for the host OS to run too. Now to create the file that will represent the virtual hard disk. Place this wherever you want on your host system, just as long as it's not on C. Review the virtual machine settings and adjust to your preferences. I'll give the virtual video card a little more RAM to work with. Under Storage, I've got the virtual hard disk on the VM's virtual SATA port. The virtual CD drive is empty, so I'll insert the Windows 7 installation DVD. Note that I have a choice of letting the VM access the host system's real DVD drive, or I can choose an ISO image. I'll select the ISO image I placed on the desktop earlier. The rest of the settings can probably be left as is. Note you can have your VM pretend to have multiple network adapters, and you can adjust what type of NIC they should emulate. I should point out one other VirtualBox setting, and that's what keyboard key will be used as the host key combination. By default, it's the right control key, but you can change this if necessary. Make a note of this for later. Now let's start up the VM and get Windows 7 installed. Once I click in the VM window, VirtualBox reminds me that my mouse has been captured by the VM window and I can't use it in the host OS anymore. This is where that host key combination mentioned earlier comes in. By pressing the right control key, I can release the mouse from the VM so it can be used in the host again. Continuing on with the installation, the ISO file is still mounted in the VM's DVD drive, so I'm getting this message. Windows Setup is still going to reboot another time or two, so I'll go ahead and remove it at this time. I'll skip the product key and activation until later, but just a reminder here that you need a separate key for the VM. The emulated hardware Windows will see in the VM is different from your host machine's hardware, so you can't reuse your host's product key in the VM. The VM needs its own product key. Windows is now installed in the VM, though I haven't applied any Windows updates yet. But note the mouse is still captured within the VM window. I'll press the right control key to release it so I can click the VM's menu bar. At this point, I'll insert the Guest Edition CD. This is a CD image provided with the VirtualBox installation, and when run inside the VM, it will add additional functionality to the VM. It will make the mouse capture and release smoother and enable higher resolution displays. Note, by the way, the Guest Edition CD is being installed in the VM, not on the host machine. When the VM restarts, I now have easier use of the mouse. I can go in and out of the VM, and depending on where I click, the mouse will control either the VM or the host, without having to use the right control key to release it. I'll adjust the VM's display resolution. My host monitor is 1080p, which will easily fit a 1024 by 768 VM window, or even larger. Any changes made will be saved with the VM when it's shut down. I'll highlight a few other VM settings here. Note the Snapshot folder is specified here, and there are settings for sharing the clipboard or drag and drop between the host and VM, though actually I've never gotten drag and drop to work reliably. The Snapshot feature lets you make a snapshot of the virtual disk so you can quickly and easily discard subsequent changes to the VM and roll back to the snapshot. This is extremely handy if you're web surfing sketchy sites in a VM browser and the VM gets a virus or gets corrupted. To demonstrate, I'll change the VM's wallpaper. The change will be saved if I shut down the VM, or I can discard the changes by closing the VM window and telling VirtualBox to restore the saved snapshot. The next time the VM boots, changes made in the prior session are gone. There are a number of different virtualization products. I use both VirtualBox and Microsoft Virtual PC, which have minor differences making one or the other more useful for certain kinds of tasks. I have several VMs comprising a variety of guest OSs, and that comes in handy when providing tech guidance over the phone to friends or colleagues who may be running different OSs. I do most of my web surfing, especially to unfamiliar or unvetted sites, in a VM. I test trial software in a VM before committing it to my host machine. I have an oldie but goodie film and slide scanner whose XP-era software still works beautifully in an XP VM. Hopefully this video will help you grasp the concept of virtual machines and get you thinking about how you might be able to make use of them.